Hello and welcome. It's Tosin here, and it's day one of the 7-day website challenge. Today, we'll be talking about domains and platforms where you need to host your website and how to choose the name that your website will go by. I'm so excited that you've signed up to watch this video series, and every day I will come in here and deliver short lessons that will help you to take action. And what excites me the most is that I'm able to help people, some of the people who have signed up, to get to the journey of creating their own website. Now, this training is going to help you get a foot on the ladder, and it will give you some time to start making improvements on your website. After all, a lot of the big websites also start small and gradually grow, and as they need functionalities, they make those changes. What I don't want you to do before you get started is let the difficulties and the obstacles stop you from doing what you need to do. I want to take those hang-ups right now and make sure that you're able to do what you need to do. So today we'll be talking about domains and platforms. So like I said, today we'll be talking about the platforms where you can host your website. Before we go, a little bit of housekeeping rules. So every day you should, if you have signed up through the landing page, you should every day be getting an email from me at 8 a.m. telling you what the overview of that day is. And you will also be getting a link to where you'll be getting all the video replays, a blog post, and the assignment that I'll be issuing out on the day, so that you have the full information of that day's course in one place. So let's get started. Before we go on into the deep website building, there are 3 things you need to know when you're building your website. You need your domain, you need your hosting, and you need to decide what platform you want to build your website on. Now, I'm going to tell you about what platform you need and why I have chosen the platform I've chosen. I personally use WordPress, and that's WordPress, and there's WordPress.org and there's WordPress.com. Apologies, my daughter is here. Everything is planned and things just sometimes don't go according to plan. So your domain is what your website is called. So for example, if your business is called ABC Company, your domain will be called abccompany.co.uk or .com or wherever you're based. Now, this is what someone would type in the URL box on the website, on your address bar, and so that they can pull up your website. You need a domain name and you need to buy that. It's not just outrightly, you still have to you just need permission to use that name. And it's assuming that name is available. So you need to go into a number of registrars to buy your domain name. The second thing you need is your hosting. Your hosting is where you can is a place, sort of like a file management system for your website, because you don't want the whole world who are wanting to access your website coming into your own personal computer. That is why you need to have a hosting provider who will be providing this for you, and people can go in there, and it's usually on the cloud somewhere. That way, people can access your website, and as many people as possible. They should be able to handle the traffic that is coming to your website. Lastly, when I refer to platforms, this is where you choose to build your platform, your website. And you might have heard people talk about a number of things: WordPress, Shopify, Wix, Weebly, Tumblr. I mean, there's a lot of them out there. Some of them are website builders, some of them are hosted for you, and some of them are self-hosted. Now, the one that self-hosted is WordPress. WordPress.org is self-hosted. Now, what you find is, and it's not to say these other web builders are not good, but what you find is when you start to do a number of things on your website, there are a number of restrictions that you find when you start to do things like that. So things like on Wix, on Weebly, because they're hosted for you, some of them you don't even have your own domain name, and at the end of the day, you don't have 100% control. If anything happens tomorrow, you might find that your website gets lost and you have to find somewhere else to host it. Now, my recommendation would be using self-hosted platforms. If you use a platform such as WordPress.com, which WordPress.com is another hosted for you. Now, you can get your website up and running immediately, but there's a lot of restrictions. And with WordPress, there's a lot you can do with it. It's so flexible. Now, if you use WordPress.com, you can get your site up and running really quickly. But when you start putting functionalities that are specific to your business, that is where you find that you might have an issue making the changes. And they do allow you, but the problem is the costs add up. Now, with WordPress.org, which is what I use, I'll tell you why I use WordPress. One, is flexible. Two, is very versatile. Three, once you're all set up, is easier to use. Now, note I didn't say it's easy to use, but if you go step by step based on what I'm going to teach you on this training, it gets easier when you start to use it. At the beginning, there's a steep learning curve, but as you get comfortable and you know what you're doing, then it gets easier to use, and you can make so many changes on your website. You can make changes to your website. And the reason why you need some of these ones that are very flexible is you can adapt your website to what your audience needs. So once you understand the needs of your customers, your website, the language, you can go in, and once I give you total control here based on using this training, you can go in and make the changes that you really need to do on your website to adapt to the needs of your customers. Now, saying that again, one of the reasons why when WordPress is free to you is good, and a lot of massive companies are using them, using WordPress, is that it's open source. By open source, it means the software itself is free. There are a few things you need to do to make it into your own personal website, but WordPress itself is free. And because WordPress is free, what happens is there could be a lot of malicious people with intent because the source code is free. So what I'm also going to teach you here today is how you can protect, well, not today, maybe in another lesson, is how you can protect your website over time so that there are no malicious hacks on your website. Now, as we go along, so I'm just going to go straight into how you can pick your domains, what criteria you want. Some of you might already have gone past that stage, and this lesson might not really be beneficial to you. But if you stay with me, there are a lot of tips that I'll be giving that you would pick from. So if you haven't picked up your domain, there are a few things you need to keep in mind. When you're thinking about your domain, it depends on the kind of business that you have. So if you are for instance, if you're a business coach and you are the brand, you are your personal brand, your domain could be something like your name. And if you make sure that when you're choosing your name, your name is easy to remember, your name is easy to pronounce, so that when you tell someone your website, they can find you easily. Now, if your name is not one that is easy to remember, what you need to do is maybe just use variations of your name. Make it simple. So for instance, you have a surname that is difficult, but you have a first name that is easy to pronounce. It can be simply yourname.com or .co.uk, depending on where you want to have your website hosted. Now, I usually advise that you use a .com, that you use a .com extension, because one, is very popular. Two, most people by default type it in to their web browser before they realize maybe the .com doesn't exist. If you are if you're trading locally in a particular area, you might want to just use that one, but always have your .com as well, because you don't want someone else buying your .com and then there's a confusion as to which business is operating what. Now, so as I said, make sure your business name is easy to pronounce, is easy to remember, and is brandable. You can also choose to use something in your industry where people easily identify with it. So if you're a cake baker, it could be Cakes by, it can even be your name, just so that people can identify your website domain name easily. Now, if you haven't purchased your domain name, you can look on registrars like Nameserver, GoDaddy to purchase your domain name. Some registrars, some hosting companies offer you a free domain name in the first year. I personally prefer to have my domain name separate from my hosting account in case anything happens. At least I know I have them separate. Or in case the hosting company suddenly decides to go bust, then you're kind of stuck. You don't know where you need to move your website or your domain name to, you have to then start the process of moving your domain name from one place to another, which sometimes can be a bother. I know there's also the option, there's also the possibility of needing to have two passwords, which is why I use a tool called LastPass to store all my passwords. It's in the cloud, and you only need one password to get into it, but basically what it does is it stores all your password on it. Now, you might choose to go down the route of buying your domain name with name registrars such as GoDaddy or Namecheap. I use Namecheap personally. The reason I use Namecheap is over time it's cheaper, and I mean it's about $10 a year, but you need to renew your domain name registration every year. So there's a cost there. It's not like you buy it and it's free outrightly, but it's advisable when you are just starting out, one, for SEO purposes as well. Make sure that when you're buying your domain name, you're buying it for at least a minimum of 3 years. It tells Google that your website or your domain name is here to stay, and it's not something that just crops up and disappears within the year. So if you know it's your business, you're serious about it, buy your domain name, buy a minimum of 3 years. You can choose to take the offer from the hosting company. We're going to talk about hosting tomorrow, but you can choose to take the offer from the hosting company, where they offer you a 1-year domain name registration free as part of your hosting package. I mean, if that's the option you choose, it's also okay. It's not going to change anything. It just means you're going to renew, and you can choose as long the duration of time that you want to register your domain name. So if you choose to do that, I mean, it's all okay. Just go ahead. When you're purchasing, you might, after we've talked about hosting, you might decide, you know what, after knowing what I need to know today, I'm going to then buy a hosting package with a domain name with my hosting package. But if you decide, if you haven't bought your domain name and you decide you want to keep them separate, then you can go to Namecheap, buy your domain name, and just register your domain name, and you keep your password ready for when you buy your hosting. Tomorrow we'll also talk about if you've bought your domain name already, how do you link it to your hosting plan. We'll also talk about that. Will be when you change your name servers, and we'll also talk about that tomorrow. What I don't want you to do is get a hang up on all of the things you need to do and not do anything. I really want you to take action based on the videos we're doing, and that's why I'm really going to keep the videos short, so that on every single day you're able to take action. At the end of today's training, what I want you to do is go ahead. If you haven't got your domain name, if you haven't thought of a name yet, think about the names you want to do, make a short list, and check on the domain registrars. Make sure you check that those names are available. If those domain names are available, make a short list of them, and you can come into the group, put down a list of those names that you have shortlisted, and let people, after all, some of those people in the group would be your ideal customers. If they're there and you drop your list there, people will comment. I will make comments, and if we think, oh, it doesn't resonate with me, what does that mean? Or I find it difficult to pronounce, then we will leave comments for you so that you can go back and think about what you need to do. After you've decided on the domain name you choose, what I would also want you to do is go ahead and purchase your domain name. At the end of this delivery today, what I would do is I'll send an email if you have registered. Otherwise, I'll put something in the group where I would provide screenshots of how you can, step by step, of how you can do your registration, the options you need to pick when you're setting up your domain name. In Namecheap, I use Namecheap, so my example would be on Namecheap, and I would just set all of that up so that step by step you know exactly what you need to do. One thing I want you to be clear on while we're doing these courses is I don't want you to seek perfection. Progress is more important than perfection. Just start. And when you start and you start seeing progress, something will gear you on, something will keep you moving, something will keep you going. And that's what I really want us to do. So today, I sure hope you have learned something in this very short video. And I want to kind of see your progress in the group. So please, if you're watching this, and you've gained anything and you're taking action, please put a comment in the group so that we all know and we can cheer you on. After all, that's what we're there for, to support you and to get you going in your journey. And at the end of 7 days, my desire is that we can actually go away and create websites for ourselves. I know there's some, and I know one thing I should have said earlier is there are some people who will be at different stages. Some of you already have websites, but you don't know how to take control of it because someone created it for you, and you don't always want to be at the mercy of developers or web designers, always having to pay each time you need to make a change. Or some of you haven't even started, and you have either gotten your domain names or you haven't. But whatever, or maybe you've even started and you've gone on Google, you've done so much research, and all you can see is just so much information that you can't make sense of it. Now, that is why we're here to help you. That is why we want to say, okay, regardless of where you are, let's just start and get moving. If you've gone past some of the lessons I'll be delivering, if you've gone past those stages, then that's fine. You will definitely, as we go along every day, you definitely find tips that you can employ, or that you can apply, rather, that you can apply to your journey, and you can, just keep going. So yes, that's it for today. And I hope to see your comments in the group, and I hope to see your progress as well. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I would answer them as fast as I can. And I will, if you've signed up, I will also drop you an email to a link where you can find a replay of this video, where you can find the assignment for today, and where you can find a detailed blog post that shows you the screenshots and step-by-step of how you need to buy your domain name, think of your domain name, what the criteria is for picking your domain name, and how you can purchase your domain name. So tomorrow I'll be here again, same time. Thankfully, everything goes to plan. Apologies, I said my daughter was here, and well, she's sleeping now. But today and tomorrow, I'll be back here again tomorrow, talking about your hosting, how what criteria is you need to look at when selecting your hosting plan and when selecting your hosting provider. I will be registering your we'll be purchasing your hosting plan as well tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you bright and early tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing your comments in the group as well. Have a lovely, lovely day, and it's Tosin again.